Hello, everyone. Get ready to unlock a secret that will change how you see every decision you make every single day. This isn't just theory. This is power. The power to understand human behavior at its core, especially your own. Prepare for an insight so profound, it will give you an undeniable edge in everything. From negotiating to simply understanding why we act the way we do, let's dive into the fascinating world of prospect theory and loss. Aversion in easy English? Introduction. Imagine winning a lottery. How exciting is that feeling? Now, imagine losing the exact same amount of money. Which feeling is stronger? Most people would say the pain of losing is much, much stronger than the joy of winning. This is not just a personal feeling. It's a fundamental aspect of human psychology, scientifically proven. This idea, this powerful insight, comes from something called prospect theory, developed by two brilliant psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Their work literally changed how we understand economics and human decision-making. Before them, economists often assumed people always made rational decisions. But Kahneman and Tversky showed us that we are not always rational. Our emotions, especially our fear of loss, play a huge role. Body. Let's go back in time to the beginning. Before the 1970s, the dominant economic theory was expected utility theory. This theory said that when people make decisions under uncertainty, they always choose the option that maximizes their expected utility, meaning they pick what they think will give them the most satisfaction or value. It was a very logical and mathematical approach. For example, if you had a 50% chance of winning $100 and a 50% chance of winning $0, the expected utility theory would say you should value that choice at 50. Simple, right? However, Kahneman and Tversky, through their groundbreaking research, started to notice that people didn't always behave this way in real life. They conducted many experiments, and what they found was truly revolutionary. Their key discovery was that people evaluate potential outcomes not in terms of absolute wealth or total utility, but in terms of gains and losses relative to a reference point. This was a crucial shift in thinking. This reference point is usually our current state, our starting point. Their work culminated in the publication of their seminal paper, Prospect Theory, an analysis of decision under risk, in 1979. This paper introduced two core concepts that shook the foundations of traditional economics: the value function and probability weighting. First, let's talk about the value function. This is a central part of prospect theory. The value function is S-shaped. It's steeper for losses than for gains. What does this mean? It means that a loss of a certain amount causes a greater negative impact, a stronger feeling of pain or regret than the positive impact, joy or satisfaction of an equivalent gain. For instance, losing $100 feels much worse than gaining $100 feels good. This is the essence of loss aversion. The curve for losses goes down more sharply than the curve for gains goes up. This explains why we try so hard to avoid losses, even if it means missing out on potential gains. Think about it this way. The psychological pain of losing $50 is significantly more intense than the psychological pleasure of gaining $50. This asymmetry in our emotional response is what drives many of our decisions. We are hardwired to protect what we have, even more than we are driven to acquire new things. This is a very powerful insight into human nature. Secondly, prospect theory also introduced probability weighting. This concept explains that people don't always treat probabilities objectively. We tend to overweigh small probabilities and underweigh large probabilities. For example, people might buy lottery tickets because they overweigh the tiny chance of winning big, even though the mathematical probability is extremely low. Conversely, people might take risks to avoid a certain loss, even if the probability of the loss is high, because they underweigh that high probability. Let's break down loss aversion even further. Loss aversion is the tendency to prefer avoiding losses to acquiring equivalent gains. Simply put, we hate to lose. This feeling is incredibly powerful. It means that to make us take a risk, the potential gain often needs to be at least 2 to 3 times greater than the potential loss. So if you're trying to convince someone to do something risky, you might need to offer them a reward that is significantly larger than the risk they are taking. This phenomenon has massive implications. In marketing, companies often use free trials. Why? Because once you have something, even for free, you feel a sense of ownership. Taking it away feels like a loss, which makes you more likely to purchase it. Think about no obligation offers. The moment you possess the item, returning it becomes a loss. This is a clever application of loss aversion. In investing, loss aversion can lead to irrational behavior. Investors might hold on to losing stocks for too long, hoping they will recover rather than selling them and realizing the loss. This is known as the disposition effect. They are so afraid of admitting the loss that they take on even greater risk, potentially losing more money. Loss aversion also explains why people might be more willing to gamble. When they are in a domain of losses, if you've already lost some money, you might be more willing to take a bigger risk to try and get back to your original reference point, rather than accepting the smaller loss. This is an attempt to avoid a definite loss, even if it means taking a chance on a larger loss. The genius of Kahneman and Tversky was not just in identifying these biases, but in providing a coherent, empirically backed theory that could explain them. They showed that our decisions are not made in a vacuum, but are heavily influenced by how choices are framed, our current emotional state, and our inherent psychological biases. Conclusion. So what have we learned? We've learned that humans are not perfectly rational beings, especially when it comes to money and risk. Prospect theory, with its core concept of loss. Aversion tells us that the pain of losing is psychologically more powerful than the joy of gaining an equivalent amount. We value things based on gains and losses relative to a reference point, and we tend to be risk-averse when facing potential gains, but risk-seeking when trying to avoid certain losses. Understanding loss aversion gives you a huge advantage. It helps you understand why you make certain decisions and why others do too. In business, you can frame offers to highlight what people will lose if they don't act. In personal finance, you can recognize when you are holding on to a losing investment due to the fear of realizing a loss. In negotiations, you can understand that people will fight harder to avoid a loss than to achieve an equivalent gain. This knowledge is power. It's about understanding the deep currents of human psychology that shape our world. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep applying these amazing insights to make better decisions and understand the world around you. You've just unlocked a major secret of human behavior. Important English vocabulary and their Korean explanations. Unlock 잠금 해제하다, 비밀을 밝히다. Secret 비밀. Decision 결정. Theory iron. Power 힘 능력. 콜의 핵심 근본. Undeniable 부인할 수 없는 명백한 edge위. 요리함. Deep into에 뛰어들다에 깊이 파고들다. Prospect theory 전망 이론. Loss aversion 손실 회피. 이마진 상상하다. Lottery 복권. Exciting 신나는 흥미로운. Exact 정확한. Stronger 더 강한. Pain 고통. Joy 기쁨. Fundamental 근본적인 기본적인. Aspect 측면. Psychology 심리학. Scientifically 과학적으로. Proven 입증된. Brilliant 뛰어난 훌륭한. Psychologist 심리학자. Literally 문자 그대로. 정말로. Economics 경제학. Decision making 의사결정. Rational 합리적인. Emotions 감정. 롤의 역할. 도미난 지배적인. Economic theory 경제 아이론. Expected utility theory 기대 효용 아이론. Uncertainty 불확실성. Maximize 극대화하다. Expected utility 기대 효용. Satisfaction 만족. Value 가치. Logical 논리적인. Mathematical 수학적인. Groundbreaking 획기적인. Research 연구. Revolution 혁명. 이바로한테 평가하다. Potential 잠재적인. Outcomes 결과. Absolute wealth 절대적인 부. Total utility 총 효용. Gains and losses 이득과 손실.